So I've been working on a little project over the holidays that I wanted to share with you. It's something that's been not bothering me, but just on my mind the last few months. And that's, can you use power tool batteries to power an electric bike, scooter, or skateboard? To give you some background, I've been wanting to own an electric skateboard for the last couple of years, but they're pretty expensive. And I think a lot of that cost comes from the price of the batteries, which got me thinking. And it turns out the same type of battery cell that's commonly used in electric bikes and such things is the same type of battery cell that's used in power tool batteries. And that's a lithium-ion high-discharge 18650 cell. But why not just build a battery pack from scratch? Well, there's a few reasons, and the first one is that I already own a couple of these batteries because they came with my drills, as I'm sure many of you do too. But beyond that, I mean, they're built tough, they already come with charging stations, they're reasonably affordable, and when you're not using them on your electric bike or whatever, you can still put them to work on your power tool. But there's got to be a catch, right? This seems way too easy. Well, I think the best way to find out is by actually trying it. So what we're going to do is put together a basic electric skateboard using power tool batteries and then go do some tests. Okay, so here are the parts for our skateboard build. We've got a set of trucks with hub motors, mounting hardware, the electronic speed controller, wireless remote, wires and connectors, some 3D printed mounting plates, which I'll talk more about shortly, and a pair of 18-volt power tool batteries. I'll put a parts list in the description for those of you interested. Let's start assembling, and I'll talk in more detail about each part as we go. This deck is a drop-through type, and it has nice big cutaways so the wheels don't catch. The type of deck's not super important, you just need to make sure that whatever it is, it has enough clearance underneath for all the parts. I'm mounting the front truck first, and you'll see why it's called a drop-through deck. These are just a regular truck and wheel setup. All the motors and the special stuff are contained in the other unit. So here's the rear truck, and as you can tell, these are hub motors, which means the motors are direct drive and mounted inside the actual wheel. This comes as a complete unit, so it's extremely straightforward to install. In fact, it goes together just like a regular set. Now we've got the deck with both trucks installed. The next thing is mounting the speed controller. You want to consider where your wires are going to go when you're positioning this. I think closer to the rear truck is a good idea, but you might have to start trimming the wires down a bit to keep things tidy. This is double-sided mounting tape and it is crazy sticky, but you could also screw through the holes in the corners of the unit. I just didn't have any screws that were the right length. Now let's talk about the wiring. From each hub motor there are larger power wires and smaller sensor wires. On my unit at least, these sensor wires came with little metal connectors on the end, but not the plug to fit into the sockets on the controller. So after buying a bunch of different ones, I finally found the one that fit, and I could just snap them into place and connect them to the controller. The sequence of wires I found to work is black, green, blue, yellow, then red, and that's the same for both the motors. The power wires are great because you just have to match up the colors. With the motors and controller talking to each other, we can now look at the other things on the controller. This is the power button, so that's definitely something we want, but also running off that plug are a red and a black wire. Now, I believe these are a 5-volt out for powering some LED strips, but this unit didn't come with a wiring diagram or anything, so I'm not 100% sure. But either way, I'm not using them, so I'll pop them out of the plug so they're not in the way. Then this black wire is an antenna for the remote, so we can just leave that as is. And that just leaves us with an XT60 plug for connecting the batteries to. And this is where things start to get fun. To connect the power tool batteries, I've made a bunch of 3D printed mounting plates. So the idea is that you can just slide your batteries in like you would a regular power tool. The slots in the bases are so that you can use a thin strip of metal to get the positive and negative contacts from the batteries. And I've made these for all the major international brands. So there's DeWalt, Milwaukee, Makita, Bosch, and Hikoki. Yes, that was a lot of work, and yes, the files are available for free over on my website. So as I said before, we need to add some thin metal strips for the battery contacts. I'm using aluminium that's 0.8mm thick, which is about 22 gauge, I think, because that's what I had lying around, but copper or brass or other conductive metals will be fine as well. I'm using two batteries in series to get 36 volts, so the negative from one holder needs to be connected to the positive of the other. To check that I've got everything connected as I should, I'll use a multimeter to get a voltage reading. That looks about right. Each 18-volt battery actually puts out around 20 volts when fully charged. I'm mounting these to the front of the board to help balance weight distribution a bit more. To connect the controller and batteries together, I've got some heavy gauge wire to handle the high current. This was actually a little too thick, so I'm giving it a nasty haircut so that it'll actually fit into the XT60 connector. I also had quite a bit of trouble getting things hot enough for the solder to flow well. Maybe time I upgrade to a better soldering iron, but that's just something to watch out for. For the other end, I'm using a couple of ring terminals. If you're doing this at home, I'd recommend a different sort of connection, one that actually shields the contact areas, as touching both the exposed terminals at the same time will cause them to short circuit, and you'll get a call from the safety police. But that's everything hooked up, so before we go any further, we better give it a quick test. Before we head out, I've 3D printed a little case to cover up the controller and added a few wiring clips so that nothing's going to get snagged. Alright, now on to the real test. Here we are on the beautiful Wellington waterfront of the capital here in New Zealand. It's just after 8 AM on a Saturday morning, so it's fairly quiet. The plan is a simple one. I'm going to ride up and down until the batteries run out. I'm using a GPS tracking app to log how far we're able to go, and I think riding this distance as well will also give me a chance to feel how well the board works in a more subjective context. And so far so good. It sounds like it's all running correctly and I've got plenty of speed. I've got the remote set to medium at the moment, and honestly, that feels plenty fast enough for someone without any safety equipment on. I actually used to skate along here all the time on my way to design school, just on a regular longboard. So I feel like I got a pretty good sense of what a comfortable speed is, and I'm traveling faster than I could skate if I was pushing, and really any faster than that and you're going to start becoming a danger to other pedestrians. Also, I've got a couple of cameras on me, so I'm just really trying not to crash in general. This is about as far as I can go in this direction, so I'll give the batteries a quick look and then begin the return journey. I'm going to have to do this a few times, so I'll check back in once the batteries get low. Okay, so here we are back at the car. It's been about 2 hours and everything has gone super well. Apart from when I fell off and absolutely owned myself in front of a whole bunch of people. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I wasn't carrying the cameras at the time, but let's just say applying the brakes at high speed is a really bad idea. But the board has been flawless, and we're now down to 1 bar of battery, so I think I'll call it a day. And we can have a look at the stats from the ride. The duration and average speed are kind of irrelevant because I kept stopping and starting while I was filming. I was traveling across flat ground, so there wasn't any real elevation change there either. The max speed is interesting. I was staying at a fairly consistent speed while I was moving, though there was one patch where I kicked it into high speed briefly on the remote. I would say that on average I was traveling between 20 to 25 kilometers an hour for most of that ride. Now the stat of real value is of course the range, and at 20 kilometers that's a whole heap further than I thought it would go. I may have been able to squeeze another kilometer or so from the batteries, but I feel like that's a fair representation of real world use. And if we do a little further research, here on eSkateboarder.com we can see the range of a bunch of commercially available boards. Now our battery pack had around 200 watt hours, so very similar results to the boosted Stealth Plus and Mini X. And remember, these ones are the advertised ranges, so their real world might be a little bit different. But all things considered, I would call that a success. Now we could just call it quits here, but instead, why don't we try this battery setup on something a bit bigger? Unfortunately, I don't own an electric bike, so we're gonna have to make one. All the secondhand bikes in my budget were in pretty bad shape, and I didn't want to have to restore the bike before I could even get started adding the electric motor. So I bought the cheapest mountain bike I could from the local Kmart. This thing is pretty terrible. There is literally a sticker on it warning you not to ride it off-road, but it'll work for what we need. So the first thing to do is build the bike up from its packing box. I'm going to be using a rear hub motor that I have left over from when I was in a reality TV show here in New Zealand, which is a whole nother story we won't get into. But to install the motor, I need to take the existing hub out of the wheel and lace the motor in with a new set of spokes. There was also an added complication because my motor was supposed to be for a fat bike, so I had to widen the rear dropouts so that it would fit. But with all of that done, let me show you what we've got. So you can see the Bafang 750 watt motor shoehorned in there nicely, and moving up the line we get to our same battery setup as before, then up to the speed controller, the digital display, and throttle control. So yeah, let's take it for a spin. We're here on the banks of the Hutt River on a lovely sunny but rather windy morning. This is the same river they shot a bunch of scenes from the Lord of the Rings on, so it's probably good enough for us. This is going to be the same test as before, see how far I can ride until the batteries run out. I figured to make things fair, I'll do a little bit of pedaling like you probably would in the real world, but I'm only going to pedal with minimal effort, so the rest has to come from the motor. It's pretty windy today, so I'm hoping by traveling one way and then back again, I'll spend time with the wind behind me and then against me, so that should average things out a bit statistically. I'm just cruising at a comfortable pace. I am passing other cyclists, so I'd say that's probably fast enough, and I can't actually pedal any faster because I'm already in my highest gear. The motor can definitely go faster, but I'll also run the batteries down pretty quick if I do that. So we're at the end of the road in this direction, time to turn around and head back the other way. Okay, so we're back from the ride and looking at the stats. Again, I was stopping to film, so my average speed is skewed, but I was going about the same speed the whole time, so let's say I was traveling 25 to 30 kilometers an hour. Now, I'm pretty surprised we didn't manage to go as far as the skateboard, even with my extra pedaling. In my head, I was thinking that the bike would have better momentum or something, but I guess it is a much larger motor pulling quite a bit more weight. However, this got me thinking, what would the difference be if I hadn't pedaled at all? So after a quick lunch while the batteries recharged, I did another run with no pedaling, trying to keep the same consistent speed as before, and I gotta say, it's much more fun when you're not pedaling. It feels like you're riding some sort of little silent motorbike. Though I was feeling a bit sorry for the other cyclists who were struggling against the wind. So here are the results from that, and I don't know about you, but I'm surprised at how close we came to matching the pedal-assisted result. I mean, still not a mind-boggling overall range, so let's do a little bit of research. Here on electricbike.com, I really love these simple website names, we get an idealist rule of thumb for pedal-assisted range, and that's 20 watt-hours per mile. Now, we had around a 200 watt-hour setup, so that would calculate to a 10-mile range, which is 16 kilometers. And you know what? That is right on what we managed. Actually, we got a bit further. So now I think it's time that we can draw some conclusions. Firstly, I want to say that this skateboard is awesome. The range and speed is more than I would ever need, and I am very happy with how this turned out. The electric bike, on the other hand, was a little bit disappointing because of the range. But I think we have to remember that I was carrying less than half the amount of batteries that e-bikes normally have on them. So I think I just might have had my expectations set just a little bit too high. And I mean, it's an easy fix. We just put another set of batteries on there, wire them up in parallel, and we've doubled the range. Now for the downside in all of this is going to be keeping an eye on battery health. Because we're using multiple units as one, we need to make sure they're both performing in exactly the same way. Now this can be managed by fully charging the batteries before you use them and using batteries that are the same condition and age. You could also use a more high-tech speed controller and battery management system to keep an eye on that as well. So now to answer my original question, yes, you can use a power tool battery to power an electric bike, scooter or skateboard. And it works pretty good. I had a lot of fun making this video. It was also quite a bit of work to put together, so I do hope you enjoyed it. But coming up in 2020, there's going to be more laser cutter episodes, as well as a bunch of new builds that I want to share with you, so do feel free to stick around. That about wraps things up here, and I will see you on the next one.